Hello, welcome to the Liberty North football press conference. This week the Eagles played Raytown High School on Friday night and had a great showing from the fans. It was a hot night and a good night. We won 30-0 against a quality Raytown team. They're going to win a lot of games. If you watch, they'll probably rattle off 4 or 5 wins in a row here against their upcoming opponents. For the game, I think the kids played hard. Richard Richardson rushed for 230 yards on 24 carries. Brian Sharp threw the ball really well. Defensively, we forced 5 turnovers. Keandre Pugh, Sal Silvio, Sid Shoemate all had interceptions. Our defensive player of the game was Sal Silvio, who had a pick 6, returned an interception for a touchdown, and played a near-perfect game at his middle linebacker spot. Special teams player of the game was sophomore John Redmond, who is our long snapper. He beat the ball down the field on the punt almost every time, did a great job. Our demo squad player of the year, which is a very important reward that we give out every week to the young man who might not be a varsity starter but practices hard and helps to make the team better. I think the whole team was excited that we gave that award to Colton Kopp this week, who did a great job in practice. So overall, it was a good night's work. We have some things to work on, but we're proud of the way we've started.
Coach, how are you going to, in the upcoming weeks, address kind of the turnovers and drops that you had?
Well, we dropped a lot of passes. There's no doubt, and the biggest problem with the dropping those passes on Friday night is 4 of them were in the red zone on 4th down attempts. So that's really the same as a turnover right there. We really haven't experienced all those drops in practice or in scrimmages throughout the summer. For week 1, we're going to treat that like it was an anomaly, something that isn't going to continue to happen. The young men who dropped them all have demonstrated they can catch a football. I think the heat may have been a factor. I think first game jitters may have been a factor, and wet hands, wet ball with all the sweat and fatigue out there. So hopefully we don't drop the balls, because our quarterback did have an outstanding game. I think if we hadn't had the drops, he probably would have completed about 12 or 13 out of 16 attempts, and it would have been a big night. I think we would have had our 35 points before halftime, and we would have been able to play some of those younger guys and get them some experience. So, but yeah, we will address, like we always do, hanging on to the football.
You had a lot of guys cramping up on Friday night's game. Do you think that's due to the heat? And if so, how are you going to fix it going into the next game?
Well, the heat was definitely a factor. We probably played 40 kids in the game because so many young men were either fatigued or cramping. I think part of it was the biggest part of it obviously was the heat. That's the hottest game I've ever been a part of. I think I was getting some cramps in my hammies on the sidelines just standing there. So I know it was a hot night for the kids. Now they toughed it out, but one thing we're happy for is our coaching staff has developed a lot of depth at positions, and so kids were able to come out of the game, and our level of play didn't drop off real bad. But we need to hydrate better, and we probably need to prepare our kids better in terms of keeping them hydrated throughout the week. I think the heat took us by surprise early in the week last week, and we probably practiced a little too hard early in the middle of the week, and the kids probably walked into the game a little bit underhydrated.
How important is it for you to have Richard Richardson out there on the field?
Well, I mean, I think for our football team, we're still finding out who we are, where we stand in comparison to our opponents and stuff. But if it is looking more and more like if if Richard's healthy for the entire season and going for the entire season, then we might be a really good football team. If I think for him, I think for our football team, Richard could potentially be the difference between us having a good team or having a great team. And I mean, he's a special running back, and he's a little under the radar. And I've told anybody who will listen that he may be the best I've ever had, and we've had some good ones.
You say he's comparable to Antoine Beavers?
He's a different style of runner from Antoine. Antoine was basically a speed guy. You give him a crack, and he's going to take it all the way. The thing that Richard does that a little bit better, I think, than Antoine is he can create his own way. So it's good to have a running back who, if stuff goes wrong up front, he can still make a play out of it, and that's the kind of kid Richard is.
Brian Sharp was making a lot of great key passes that were incomplete, and I just was wondering how you're going to fix the boys catching.
Well, we work on catching the ball every day. I think that they know that one thing about dropping a pass is everybody in the stadium knows you dropped it, and you know you dropped it. And if that's not motivation enough to work on catching the ball, then I don't know what is, because there's an embarrassment factor there. You know, those linemen. You got 5 linemen up front, and 2 or 3 of them screw up every play, and nobody knows that they made the mistake. But those receivers, they drop the ball, and everybody knows there's an embarrassment factor. Hopefully that'll motivate them to, and they're all capable of catching the ball, and they all have demonstrated that they do catch the ball. If Brian can keep throwing like that, and if those kids can start catching it, I think we'll be tough to deal with. Pressure, I mean, the pressure is there all the time. You know, it's in football you practice. I mean, we had 41 practices before we played a game. You know, you practice so much more than you play. You know, those other sports have 30, 35 games a year. Once that season starts, they're playing games 2 or 3 times a week, and some of their games can kind of fly under the radar. When there's a football game, it's a big deal. And so whether people expect you to be great or whether they expect you to be bad, either way, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Friday nights, because there's so much preparation that goes into it, and it's a very public thing. I mean, everybody knows how the football team did on Friday night. So there's no added pressure because we went to the semifinals. That pressure's there every year. Well, Blue Springs South has a storied football program. You know, they've been Class 6 state champions 2 or 3 times over the last dozen years. They always win. They always have a winning record. They're extremely well coached. I've always had great respect for Greg Oder, their head football coach. He's been there for probably as long as I've been coaching. When I was an assistant at Oak Park, I've had a lot of years trying to prepare a team against his teams, and we know that they had a rough week last week, but Blue Springs South doesn't put together 2 rough weeks in a row, so we know we're going to get their best shot, and they're going to be a physical football team, and it's going to be tough. When we saw that they were on our schedule, we were a little bit disappointed, but the good thing about playing in Blue Springs South is if you win, it's a big deal that you beat them. If you lose, it's not an embarrassing loss. So we're in kind of a no-lose situation. Well, appreciate everybody coming and all the questions, and we'll see you next week.